Ministerio de Turismo y Deporte, afuera. Ministerio de Cultura, afuera. Ministerio de Ambiente y Desarrollo Sostenible, afuera. Ministerio de las Mujeres y Género y Diversidad, afuera. Ministerio de Obras Públicas, afuera.
So as the saying goes, we can either do this the easy way or the hard way. And that is exactly the message that Trump has sent out to massive swaths of the federal workforce. Actually, basically the entire federal workforce over the past week. And the results we are beginning to already see is that the swamp is beginning to drain itself in some areas, right? In some cases, these useless and oftentimes subversive federal workers are already starting to willingly quit their jobs and leave their life of working in the government. Now, don't get me wrong. Let's not celebrate this all too much, because massive amounts of the swamp at the same time will not go down all that easily. We are up against very entrenched forces right now. And as you saw in the case of USAID, right? This is an agency that, DOGE was trying to audit, and they openly just said no. And then the Trump administration had to basically temporarily shut it down over their complete defiance of authority. A lot of these people literally think that they are the government. They think their authority supersedes the president or Congress, which is not how it actually works, not how the Constitution works. But of course, that is the situation we're in. But nonetheless, in today's video, I want to talk about the fact that apparently tens of thousands of federal workers, approximately, it's now being reported by the BBC, 20,000 to 40,000 federal workers have already accepted the offer from the Trump administration to willingly resign from their jobs. And one has to say, really does make the whole situation here a lot easier. First, folks, before we get into today's story, make sure you do us a big favor by hitting that like button down below and subscribing to the channel if you are new. Subscribing is the number one way to ensure that we can keep doing these videos. And with that said, okay, so let's get right into this. Essentially, what happened over the past week is that the Trump administration sent out an offer to almost every bureaucrat in the federal government. I mean, there are some exclusions, but almost everyone was included in this. Is essentially look, we are giving you the offer right now to resign from your job, and we'll give you a buyout, right? We'll basically give you, I believe it is 8 months of free pay, but after that, you have to leave your job, whatever. And basically, the idea behind this is maybe we can get some of these people to willingly leave their jobs. And the threat underlying here is that, look, during the next budget, if DOGE makes some moves to take out some of our federal bureaucracies, you may be furloughed, you may be laid off. So take the offer now or run the risk of maybe not having that free vacation money, leaving your job later on. And apparently, guys, according to the reporting here, tens of thousands of U.S. government workers have accepted an offer from the Trump administration to resign in exchange for continued pay until the 30th of September. Some 2 million federal employees were advised that they could opt out to the deferred resignation program, an offer akin to a gradual buyout, last week. But so far, more than 1% of the federal workforce has chosen to take part in this ahead of the Thursday deadline, making up between 20,000 to 40,000 federal workers, according to U.S. media. Which, when you want to talk about government efficiency or the swamp or whatever, is it not absolutely crazy that 20,000 to 40,000 federal workers equates to about 1%? That is around 1% of the entire federal workforce. What are all these people doing? Why exactly do we have so many people working in the federal government? Well, of course, this is a fundamental question that now the Trump administration, after years of conservatives saying that they wanted to cut down on the federal government, including even the first Trump administration, now there are actually serious moves to do so. The White House, which previously said that it expected as many as 200,000 people to accept it, told U.S. media that they expect a spike in participation in the next 24 hours. The resignation scheme's announcement, which was delivered in the form of a late night email, hilarious there, is part of an ongoing effort by the Trump administration to slash the size of the federal government bureaucracy and cut our spending. Now, what's very interesting here, and let me just say, this is a move that is big, this is amazing, but at the same time, I would say nothing meant by this, but you probably want to double the Secret Service protection after doing this. But apparently, guys, this mass resignation offer was reportedly sent to every single employee, the entire workforce of none other than the CIA. That is right. On Tuesday, the CIA became the first national security arm to extend the offer to its staff, telling its entire workforce they could quit and receive about 8 months of pay and benefits. And that is obviously a huge, huge deal. Because if you know anything about the CIA, well, I don't want to even get into it. I'm not suicidal, but, this is a big deal. This is a really big deal. Telling the CIA, the swamp, I think it's time for all of you to quit. And if not, it might not go so well for you. Newly appointed CIA Director John Ratcliffe personally decided that he wanted the spy agency to be involved in the resignation program, the source told CNN. And I think underlying here what's happening is that in a lot of our intelligence agencies, which are also being affected by this, we have seen, especially under the Biden years, but arguably way before that, arguably for decades now, our national security agencies are being overrun similarly in the way that USAID is operating by rogue, subversive, anti-American actors. And what they're trying to do is basically, if we can get a huge portion of the CIA and the FBI and all these agencies to basically resign, and we put in people who are actually loyal to America, if you know what I mean, in those positions, then that could be very big. Now, another move that the Trump admin made was they wanted the FBI to reveal to the president how many and which FBI agents were involved in investigating the January 6th protesters. And the number that the FBI returned was absolutely insane. And it's crazy to think, but it's true, right? These were the priorities of the Biden administration when he was in office. The FBI just revealed that 5,000 out of their 13,000 agents were focused on January 6th protesters. That is 39%, almost half of the entire bureau. The entire FBI was focused under the Biden presidency on investigating the January 6th protesters. It should go without saying, what the heck, right? You have massive security problems in this country. You want to talk about gangs, right? Of course, one of the defining final moments of the 2024 campaign was when a Venezuelan migrant gang, right, Tren de Agua, I believe, literally took over an entire apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado. You have the cartels, you have all these issues, crime, a massive problem in American cities. And what was the FBI focused on? Should anyone be surprised? Under Biden, 40 almost percent of the FBI was investigating the J6 people. Yeah, nobody's exactly surprised here. But moving on, guys, there's a lot more to talk about from DOGE this week, because yesterday, Elon Musk is now questioning, right? They basically are bringing the audits, the investigations into every single bureaucracy in our government. But now Elon is asking the question, would you like DOGE to audit the IRS? And combined here, like almost actually over 90% of people said yes. That's big, right? So we're auditing basically every single agency here. You certainly love to see it. Now, with that said, I kind of want to close here by bringing up this whole issue of USAID yet again. I mean, we've talked about this kind of extensively, but I think it is worth noting because there's so much controversy over it this week. A lot of the funding that to USAID that's being cut includes ridiculous nonsense like what you are about to hear. And, it's almost interesting. Why are the Democrats so opposed to shutting down the funding to this? Well, it tells you a lot about their values and their party and what they stand for, but take a listen.
You're watching live coverage.
Through USAID over the past several years, these are some of the insane priorities that organization has been spending money on. $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces, $70,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. I don't know about you, but as an American taxpayer, I don't want my dollars going towards this crap, and I know the American people don't either, and that's exactly what Elon Musk has been tasked by President Trump to do, to get the fraud, waste, and abuse out of our federal government.
Yeah, so as she brought up there, $2.5 million to DEI in Serbia, $70,000 on an Irish DEI musical, $47,000 on transgender operas in Colombia, $32,000 on a trans comic book in Peru. This is what USAID was doing basically behind all of our backs, acting as a basically almost like a rogue nation-building non-governmental agency being funded by your tax dollars around the world. This, of course, also begs the question of why exactly are the Democrats and particularly the mainstream media so pissed off about USAID basically being eliminated almost altogether is probably what's going to happen as the end result of this. At least we hope so. And the answer there is interesting. Because in the case of the Democrat politicians, as I've brought up before, I think it's very obvious. Well, they are corrupt politicians. The USAID is a corrupt bureaucracy. There's an obvious relationship there. Heck, there's probably corruption happening back and forth. Obviously, corruption is going to protect other corruption. But it also begs the question, what exactly is the mainstream media's interest? You may be asking, right, in making such a big deal, a mass panic over USAID. After all, I'm not sure the average American even knew what this agency was before this week. And I think when you hear it out loud, and I think this is what's really going on, the reason they're so scared of DOGE is because if the American people actually find out and learn and are shown where their tax dollars are being spent, there's going to be a massive upheaval, right? People are going to be absolutely pissed. I mean, I think every American, after learning what DOGE has found here, is going to be asking for a massive tax refund and completely, disgruntled, I think, with the state of their current government if they were not already. But of course, the mainstream media, what is their interest in here? Well, apparently, it was revealed in the DOGE investigation of USAID that, by the way, keep in mind, this is called the U.S. Agency of International Development. So there's a lot of nonsense they were spending their money on overseas, as well as in some cases things that were actively undermining the actual agenda of the American government in terms of the executive branch. But check this out right here. Apparently, USAID was also funneling money to the mainstream media. You can't even make that up. The U.S. government, through USAID, was essentially bribing. Okay, some would say, oh, that's not what we're doing. All right, still, it's very corrupt money here. It's dark money flowing back and forth between the USAID and the mainstream media. And now you wonder why we don't have a free press anymore in America, guys. You wonder why, in many cases, it seems like the media, which is historically supposed to be an entity that challenges entrenched institutions of power, nowadays, you turn on MSM, is always defending the institutions in power. Could it have something to do with the fact that our government is basically paying the mainstream media? Here's the reporting from Benny Johnson. This is the biggest scandal in news media history. No employee at Politico got paid yesterday. First time ever that the company has missed a pay period. This is a crisis. Okay, so that might be interesting, right? Politico, very massive political news media reporting company. Everyone knows them. Why was no employee being paid yesterday? Now we learn today that Politico, which is a news company that spent the last 10 years obviously trying to destroy the MAGA movement, was being massively funded by USAID. Trump and Elon got rid of their funding, and now Politico, they don't have the money apparently to pay their employees. Isn't that so interesting? This, guys, okay, now we have found the reason why they're so threatened and why you have Al Green arguably trying to impeach President Trump over this decision to look into USAID, okay? Because this is the deep state. You want to talk about the deep state? This is it right here. And to essentially find out that for the past several years, the mainstream media, the supposed free press in America, is essentially state-run propaganda, right? It's like one giant government psyop almost, a lot of the mainstream media. Isn't that so interesting?
So upon coming out here to the briefing room, I was made aware of the funding from USAID to media outlets, including Politico, who I know has a seat in this room. And I can confirm that the more than 8 million taxpayer dollars that have gone to essentially subsidizing subscriptions to Politico on the American taxpayers' dime will no longer be happening. The DOGE team is working on canceling those payments now. Again, this is a whole of government effort to ensure that we are going line by line when it comes to the federal government's books. And this president and his team are making decisions across the board on Do these receipts serve the interests of the American people? Is this a good use of the American taxpayers' money? If it is not, that funding will no longer be sent abroad, and American taxpayers will see significant savings because of that effort.
So there you have it. Now it all makes sense, right? Because I kind of even questioned myself when I first saw this come out. And, you know, again, there's been a lot of cuts to a lot of different agencies. There's been a lot of reforms. A lot of people are being laid off, and the media is not happy about it. But the moment they touch this USAID thing, something, again, most of us have never really heard of, we're not super familiar with, it was mass panic. You got the Democrat politicians organizing protests in the streets, and they're making the biggest deal, and suddenly Elon Musk is the worst guy ever. Oh. So that's why they're so mad, right? Because all their dirty little secrets here are coming out. Now we're finding out, oh, we don't even have a free press in America. It's like a government-ran psyop. Yeah, I get it now. Do you?
Elon Musk, thank you, sir. On Elon Musk, how often are you talking to him? And have there been ideas that he's brought to you that you've said, oh, no, wait a minute, this is going a little too far?
Well, many ideas, but look, he's done a great job. Look at all the fraud that he's found in this USAID. It's a disaster what the people, radical left lunatics, they have things that nobody would have even believed. The whole thing with $100 million spent on you know what, with money going to all sorts of groups that shouldn't deserve to get any money. With the money, I'd like to see what the kickbacks are. How much money has been kicked back? Who would spend that kind of money to some of the things that you read about and I read about and I see every night on the news and every morning when I read the papers? Who would spend money for that? I would say this, the people that got all that money, are they kicking it back to the people that gave it from government? No, that's, to me, very, very corrupt. The real question is, how much of a kickback has there been? And one of the things I want to investigate rapidly, because I've never seen anything to this.
And that's another great question. Are they getting kickbacks to one another? Like, what exactly is going on here? Guys, I don't want to understate this. I think what DOGE is currently doing in conjunction with Trump may actually be the most important thing that any president has done in the 21st century, and arguably maybe even going back before that. And again, I don't want to understate that, because a lot of conservative presidents have made minor cuts to bureaucracy, or they move spending around or something like that. But literally going in and auditing our government as being the power of the president and showing that to the world, and then actually doing something about that. Like, they actually closed the doors to the USAID, as we talked about in the actual point of this video. They actually got a lot of federal workers to resign. They're basically like cleaning out the mess, right? They're draining the swamp here. That is big. That's going to be big for generations to come, because, you know, as you kind of see with this bureaucracy, with this permanent state, it, you know, they long outlive, I should say, the president themselves and their legacy, right? These people have been around forever. They affect change. They affect government forever. So if we can take the federal bureaucracy, get rid of a lot of it, and the parts that we keep, we actually put like our people, like good patriotic people, running these agencies, staffing these agencies. I don't want to understate that at all. That may be a literal, like, long-term permanent legacy for Trump that lasts several decades. And it's transformational. It's revolutionary. It's huge. It's huge. And that was all made possible because you, the American people, decided on November 5th that you actually wanted to be in control of your own government again. That's the vote they made, and now that's what's happening. We're rapidly finding out. But with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.